They said Nobby Stiles got slaughtered in the papers. Absolutely slaughtered. And all he did was give them everything. They cheered his tackles when it suited them, then blamed him for the bruises they begged him to make. He wasn't graceful. He wasn't built for posters or press conferences. He was built for war, blind in one eye, toothless, 5'7" of pure damage. He didn't play to entertain. He played to break attacks. He didn't care who watched. He only cared that the job was done. And when they didn't need that job anymore, they erased him. He never asked to be remembered, but he remembered all of them. The teammates who softened their tone when the cameras came, the managers who shook his hand and handed away his place, the press that hunted him, then left him to rot, the game that drained his mind and looked away. This isn't hate, this is memory. These are the names he never forgave. Subscribe if you still believe in the players who carried football on their bones and got nothing back. They said it was just a tactical change. They said Nobby Stiles was a liability, too aggressive, too wild, too much. And so they brought in Alan Mullery. Calm, controlled, easier on the eye, easier on the press, easier to explain at board meetings and luncheons. He didn't fight like Nobby. He didn't have to. He had balance, not bite, composure, not chaos. He made midfield look like diplomacy, like PR with shin pads. The press called it progress. The FA called it balance. But Nobby knew what it really was, a quiet exile disguised as evolution. One day he was marking Eusebio out of existence. The next, he was reading the team sheet like it was a goodbye note written in someone else's handwriting. There was no confrontation, no press conference, no closure, just the sting of being replaced by a man who fit better on brochures. And Nobby felt it. He once said, "They wanted something else. Someone else, and I knew it." He never blamed Mullery, never spoke his name with bitterness, but deep inside, he never forgave the moment they gave the shirt, his shirt, to a man who hadn't bled for it. Because sometimes betrayal doesn't raise its voice. It just smiles, walks in, and waits for you to disappear. Ray Wilson played next to him. Same team, same anthem, same medal. They stood together when the country roared, shared the glory, shared the silence after, shoulder to shoulder when it mattered. But when the noise faded, Ray spoke like a stranger. Years later, watching footage of Nobby's tackle, the one that turned the game, the one that cost him everything, Ray Wilson said, "It looks horrendous when I see it now, not a pundit, not a rival, his own teammate, a man who'd gone to war beside him, now recoiling in front of a camera, trying to make distance from a tackle they all needed but only one man paid for." Nobby didn't respond. He didn't fight headlines with headlines. Didn't beg for anyone's defense. Didn't remind the world that Wilson had once celebrated that very tackle like it was a flag being raised. But he remembered. Because when you've played half-blind, toothless, and hunted by the world's best, you don't forget who folded first. You don't forget who blinked when the spotlight came back around. Nobby played for the ones beside him. He carried the risk so others could keep their shine. He did the job no one wanted and let the cleaner boots lift the trophy. And when the world turned soft, Ray turned quiet, or worse, turned with them. Not every betrayal wears a rival's face. Some wear the same shirt, some stand beside you until they don't. Nobby never needed enemies. He just listened carefully to what friends were willing to say once it was safe to forget. "I gave everything." They gave silence, Nobby Stiles. He wasn't asking for statues. He wasn't chasing titles. All Nobby Stiles wanted was to be remembered by the game he never stopped serving. But the FA, the very men who built their empires on his spine, chose silence. He had given them a lifetime. They couldn't give him a lifeline. They built cathedrals off the World Cup win, but left one of its fiercest guardians to rot in the back pew. They knew. They all knew. The toll of those 90 minutes, the cost of those fearless headers, the damage etched into every tackle. But when the final whistle blew on his career, they packed up the banners and walked away. His family said it in 2016. He was badly let down by the FA. He should never have been left to fade like that. He gave his brain to their history. They gave him press releases. He played through pain for their anthem. And when dementia stole his name, They didn't even ask. They loved the myth, but ignored the man. And Nobby never forgot that. He didn't have the grace of a winger, didn't have the looks of a poster boy, and that made him an easy target. The media never liked his face. They liked clean lines, gleaming boots, heroic smiles. Nobby Stiles was none of those things. He didn't pose, didn't flatter, didn't play by the page. He was sweat and scars and snarls. He was the England they didn't want to sell but couldn't win without. The press called him a savage, a brawler, a relic, said he played like he'd just come out of a bar fight. They printed caricatures, mocked his teeth, sneered at his style, and ignored the quiet genius behind the chaos. He didn't dribble past you. He dismantled your spine. And that didn't make back pages. They praised Charlton's elegance, celebrated Moore's polish, and left Nobby in the mud, where he always worked. When he stopped Eusebio, they called it gritty. When he slowed down, they called it dirty. No columnist ever asked what those tackles cost him, only what they could charge to condemn them. He once said, they wanted pretty. I gave them pain, and pain doesn't sell shirts. He read those headlines, clipped the worst, burned the rest, and etched the names in silence. He came home, after the glory, the medals, and the pain, after the teeth were gone and the tackles caught up. After giving England its proudest summer, Nobby Stiles returned to Preston, not to bask in applause, not for money or favours, but out of duty. He coached the youth, lifted tired legs in the senior squad, walked the same halls he once ran through as a boy. For years, he gave himself to that club, years they can never repay. And when things turned rough, they didn't ask, they didn't stand behind him, they didn't even speak. They sacked him, silently, like he was a form to be filed. No statement, no public thanks, just a name wiped off a door by people who'd never lifted what he'd carried. He didn't lash out, didn't protest, didn't beg. He just lowered his head and left. But he remembered. Because when loyalty is your instinct, you feel betrayal like a break in your bones. At 61, his world began to slip. Not with a bang, but with confusion. The man who once danced through defenders now wandered rooms, unsure where he was. The warrior who stopped Eusebio couldn't find his way back from the bathroom. And the game? It looked away. The FA, the league, the broadcasters, all paraded 1966 when they needed nostalgia. But when the brain damage set in, when the silence deepened, they had no plan. There were no clear protections, and families say support was slow to arrive. His medals? Sold off, to pay for care homes and dignity. His boots? Boxed in an attic while Premier League executives cashed bonuses off the backs of forgotten legends. His son, John, said it with fire. It's a national scandal. And he was right. There were no protocols, no studies, no support for the men who headed cannonballs before anyone warned them of the cost. Nobby wasn't alone, but he was the one who never masked it. He lived it publicly, with shaking hands and a quiet stare, while the world that cheered him once switched to the next star. They said they honored the class of '66, but they only loved the photo, not the fallout. And when the lights went out, when the crowds were gone, they let him disappear into silence. He was never their villain, never their cause, just another relic of a time they'd rather forget. But Nobby remembered them all, even when he no longer remembered himself. He didn't write books, didn't sell documentaries, didn't beg for applause or recognition. Nobby Stiles didn't need to speak, because the bruises spoke for him. Every scar, every tackle, every moment he stood alone while others sat safe. He remembered them all, not in anger, in accuracy. He never stood on red carpets, never asked to be called legend, never played the after-dinner game. Because his stadium was a battleground, his justice came in boots, not ballots. The men in suits used his name when it was convenient, then erased it when it wasn't. The teammates who stood beside him in anthem lines, some vanished, some turned quietly, some offered words, when it no longer cost them. And the press, who once screamed his name across front pages, let it fall silent when it mattered most. But Nobby, he didn't forget. because forgetting would have meant forgiveness. And that he never gave. He fought like a dog, he danced like a lunatic, he protected like a father. And when they took everything, he walked away with one thing left intact: his truth. This wasn't about grudges, it was about memory. It was about telling the world that silence does not mean peace and dignity does not mean surrender. He didn't go quietly. He just went without needing to explain himself. Because Nobby Stiles never chased a headline. He was the headline. And the names he never forgave, they know who they are. Subscribe if you still believe in the warriors they used, then left behind.